Ghana, rifleman.
When Americans are ready to get rid of a car or a laptop or some of their clothes, where do those goods go? Well, most end up in countries in the global south, where millions of people depend on repairing, dismantling, or selling them to make a living. But now, amid lax regulations and legal loopholes, environmental groups say the business is a toxic trifecta of waste that inflicts catastrophic damage to land, coastlines, and public health. Fred de Sam Lazaro has the first of two reports from the West African nation of Ghana, produced in partnership with the Pulitzer Center.
Ghana has enjoyed economic growth in recent years, and nowhere is that more evident than on Accra's streets, where growing incomes have spiked the demand for automobiles. Like cities anywhere, traffic delays are part of daily life, but here they are costly not just in time, but health and safety and the environment.
The cars that clog the streets of Ghana's capital have come a long way to be here, but they didn't come directly from a factory. Instead, most have had long lives on the streets of America, Germany, Dubai, and many other places before being shipped here. Long lives, that is, unless they were in an accident.
We changed the tank too.
That's how this 2018 Toyota sedan wound up in a repair yard.
This came from the United States.
Northern Virginia, in fact. We traced it back to a listing on an auction website where it was sold along with millions of used cars across a range of conditions shipped to Africa each year.
Some of them don't even make it onto the boat. They need to be pushed on.
Kenya-based Rob de Jong with the United Nations Environment Program has studied the global trade in used cars.
So would you say that most vehicles would not be certified as safe on the roads of countries where they came from?
Exporting countries export majority of vehicles that are not roadworthy.
Not roadworthy.
Not roadworthy.
At the repair shop, mechanic Solomon Ativi says how much the Corolla is repaired is informed by the new owner's budget.
So the side airbag has deployed and burst the seat open.
Just the driver's side airbag would be replaced, he told me, not the side and passenger ones. Many of the repaired vehicles hit the road less safe and more polluting, often arriving minus their catalytic converter, a device required in developed countries since the 1970s and key to cleaner emissions.
Look at this.
There's a robust global market for them because they contain
Garbage.
platinum.
Look at that. Allah.
We talked to a trio of mechanics in Accra's auto repair district.
Catalytic converters, you usually don't fix it.
What is that?
If the person don't have money, you fix it. If the money is there, you fix it.
How many people fix it and how many don't?
A reaction that suggested most missing converters are not replaced.
It depends on the financial problem.
Financial problem.
Yeah.
So most people will just let it go.
Yes.
Extending the life of cars that should really have been recycled in
Dangerous.
America or Europe.
What's he doing under
Vehicle
there?
in Europe is recycled for 98% of its parts. So it's a very good circular approach. However, they're now more and more just sent to Africa because it's cheaper than to pop and recycle them.
At the other end of their useful life here, the junk cars compound the crisis from another toxic import, electronic waste.
Which they take from vehicles, cars.
Every day, scrap workers harvest components from cars and all manner of electronics. They're looking in particular for metals, which are extracted mainly by incineration.
This is the epicenter of Ghana's imported
Look at
waste
this.
industry.
Look.
Thousands of tons of used washers and dryers, refrigerators,
Look at this.
computer hardware, and air conditioners
Look.
sit here awaiting demolition by people looking for
Look at the
anything
state of the river.
value inside
Look.
them.
Everything here is basically
Shame-
enveloped
shame
in
on you.
public users.
I came here with Mike Anane, who we hired as a consultant for this report. He's a veteran environmental journalist who's worked for the group Greenpeace.
You're talking about mercury. I mean, all the toxic heavy metals that you can find in electronic waste are here. They're right in the soil. They're in the smoke. We're breathing it.
An international agreement intended to prohibit the export of electronic waste went into effect in 1992. The US did not ratify this Basel Convention, but even in countries that did, there's a huge loophole. Items classified as repairable, often labeled as charity,
Look at the
are
state of that.
exempt.
When you examine these items that are coming here, they are either obsolete and simply would not work.
Critics argue these so-called donations are causing more issues than they are solving. Before we were shooed away by a supervisor, we talked with young men who work here, some without even gloves, sifting dirt to separate and salvage small scraps of metal.
How much do you earn here?
50 cedis.
That's about $3 a day. 14-year-old Jefferson
Look at
Phillip
this.
told us he works here after school
Poor
to help pay
buggers,
his
look.
school fees.
What's your favorite subject?
Mathematics.
Mathematics?
Bless your heart,
What
son.
would you like to be when you grow up?
A banga.
Doctor.
Doctor.
High aspiration, but if his path is like so many men here, it may not take him far, literally.
This is Petro.
Like Jefferson, Muhammad Awal came here when he was 14 from the country's unsettled north in search of work after his father died.
15 years ago. This is my work I'm doing.
So,
15 years.
Yes, to support my family.
He
oh,
worked
dear.
6 days a week, he says, to support his wife and 4 children.
Oh, my.
What would you like to do in your future?
My future, I want to stop this work. I want to travel to Europe
Ah.
and work and save my family. Because I want to look my children to take education.
There are around 20 million people in the world making their livelihoods off waste.
University of California, Berkeley professor Kate O'Neill is the author of 3 books about the recycling industry.
Those people can't be just tossed off their jobs. You've got to kind of create jobs, create markets, create ways in which we move from a waste economy to a repair economy, a repair and reuse economy. And that can be global.
Already in many developing countries, she says, second-hand and refurbished electronics and appliances have thriving markets. But, she says, increasingly, a lot of junk is sent here, hardware that, by design, has become difficult to dismantle and recycle, making it cheaper to send overseas, often disguised as a charitable donation.
I remember back when I had my first computers, they came with manuals. The way the industry is structured right now is what's called planned obsolescence, to make sure we buy a new one every 2 years. So I think part of the problem is what we have can't easily be recycled or refurbished.
They need to bear some responsibility.
More immediately, exporting countries need to step up their oversight of what leaves their shores, says Larry Katoy of Ghana's Environmental Protection Agency.
Developed countries need to do more within their own jurisdiction.
No,
when it
you
comes
need to stop
exports of some of these
taking
items. They have,
shit
I would
into
say,
Africa.
enough, resources to be able to tell which items are actually junk and which ones are not compared to us.
Huh.
An
Poor son.
admonition we also heard on the street, loudly and clearly, despite a language barrier, when a nearby merchant, Yakubu Salifu, interrupted our interview with Muhammad Awal.
You know, you peoples, Africa no create copper, Africa no create rubber, Africa no create car, you know, create car type. Then you come and take the video, you say, we Africa, we are Ben.
What he's saying is that it is the white people who are bringing all the garbage, all the junk, all the electronic waste here. And then we are burning. And after burning, you ask for these things to be sent to you.
Much of the waste material here comes from Europe and the US, though the copper or aluminum that's extracted is usually destined for China and India. The detritus people here complain leaches or is washed into the lagoons and drains that drain into the Atlantic Ocean.
Poisonous.
Only to be washed back onto beaches, mixing with a different kind of waste. It starts in the reject pile from thrift stores in wealthy countries.
Look at the state
We'll
of
have
this.
that story in the second part of our series. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm...
Really is a vacation about now.
Yeah, me too.
There's somewhere warm and adventurous. A lot of fun activities for the kids.
Something more relaxing too.
Something different, unique, and something we haven't seen before.
Where are we going?
Experience Abu Dhabi. Babe, you're really strong.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a privilege to have you here, Fuse. Thank you for coming in.
I really appreciate it.
Not at all. I appreciate your time, sir. What are your problems with the lyrics?
I have a lot of problems with the lyrics because it doesn't represent the truth of what is in Africa and what was. Lyrics such as "There's no peace and joy in Africa this Christmas." Every December, I go to Ghana for Christmas, and millions of people come to Ghana for Christmas and actually enjoy themselves. So there's no truth in that. And another problem that I have with it is talk. It was a situation that was one country in crisis, but somehow the lyric encapsulated a whole continent, saying that there's no peace and joy in the whole of Africa this Christmas. And I always liken it to the fact that, Ukraine is in crisis right now, but would we make a song saying there's no peace and joy in Europe this Christmas? So I feel like that in many folds, it depicts a truth that's not really true.
What is the true face of Africa now?
The true face of Africa is a place of opportunities and investment, a place where you can have a great time, a place where you can genuinely have a holiday and take your family to. But I feel like the perception of Africa does not portray that due to what the mainstream media portrays. And I feel like it's now time to really tell the truth of what is in Africa, which is a place where you don't have to just give £2 and get on with your life. You can actually go and spend 2,000, in a week.
You were asked to take part in Band Aid 30 10 years ago. Obviously, you declined. It was for those reasons. Was it Bob Geldof who asked you? How did it work out?
He actually phoned me and he asked me to be a part of it. And straight away I let him know that, I love the idea of actually raising for the current crisis, which was the Ebola crisis at the time. But I just said to him that, especially, giving is good. And I love that the British public love to give when it's time when there's a crisis. But what I pointed out to him was that it's the model, it's the way that it's been executed. There's a way that we can raise money for the people in crisis without taking away their dignity, their pride, their identity. We can raise it in a dignified way. Same way we've done for Ukraine. We've raised 200 billion for Ukraine in a dignified way. The same can be done. So when I did express at the time, he said he's been doing this for over 30 years and he's not about to change it now.
I don't blame him.
So I did actually come with the alternative. We can
tell
change
Bob
the
Geldof what to do.
There this Christmas. And with the caliber of artists that are on this song, surely we can make a song that can uplift in order to support these people, because we were all in the top 10 at the time.
Charlie.
So it wasn't really about the lyrics.
How did he respond, Fuse?
He just said it's not about to change now.
It was friendly, though, was it?
It was friendly in the sense that, but it was very it's just straightforward. I said I made a suggestion because I genuinely feel like if you want to help somebody in crisis, the best person to listen to are the people going through it.
Sure.
Right. So I felt like when I gave them that kind of angle where we can actually raise and still, maintain the dignity of the people, because if you remember when they even launched Band Aid on ITV, on X Factor, there was a dead body being dragged, a dead body of an African being dragged across our television, and I felt like there's just a way better, there's a much better way to do things without having to take away the dignity.
You don't want to face the truth, my brother.
40 years ago, and I know you weren't even on this planet then, but 40 years ago, you did actually say you wanted to know what Africa was. I mean, parts of Africa 40 years ago were in desperate need of help, weren't they?
Parts of Africa were in desperate need of help. Parts of Europe were definitely in need of help too. Again, it's how you do it.
Yeah.
There's no problem with raising money for a crisis. In the short term, it makes sense. On surface level, it makes sense.
Well,
do it, mate. And I'm speaking as a child of who grew up in an era where these images of Band Aid and initiatives like it have been on our screens for years. It really affected me as an African living in the UK.
In what way did it affect you?
Where I was not proud of who I was, who I am. I wanted to disconnect with being African, because whenever anything that was related to Africa would come, all my friends in school would be laughing. Do you get it? So that imagine your child going to school and being embarrassed of who they are because of how the media has portrayed them. So for me, it's like the way it's affected me and everybody, from my generation. I just want to create a better world from my child.
Yeah.
Growing up in the UK or growing up outside of Africa, I want them, because there's such an imbalanced view of the world. I just want my child to grow up in a world where they can feel proud of who they are and just be themselves.
So what should the future of Band-Aid be now?
I think he needs to. It's been 40 years.
Yeah.
Right.
40 years on
For
the
any
25th.
business person, after 40 years, you have, and if you're not seeing results, because I haven't seen any results. If I'm being honest, like he needs to look at the model.
You don't think it's done good?
I think it's done more bad than good.
Band-Aid has done more bad than good.
More bad than good because
it's raised tens of millions of pounds.
And it's also cost us in trillions.
How's it cost you in trillions?
So okay, I'll give
it cost Africa in
I'll
trillions?
give one example.
Please, yeah.
I'll give one example. Because of the image, the negative images that's been portrayed of the continent, Africa is seen as a high risk a profile, and as a result of that, we get high interest rate on our sovereign debts. Right, it's costing us 3.2 billion every year.
Okay.
Oh
Right,
yeah. So that's Band-Aid's fault, is
That's
it?
one example.
Yeah.
Another example is I partnered with the Ghana government
Oh, here we go.
for this initiative called the Year of Return that enables people to come to Ghana, just enjoy Africa firsthand. Right, we managed to raise in that year 1.9 billion for the economy.
Wow.
Right, before that we were giving out 45,000 visas. During that we gave out 750,000
Well
visas.
done for that,
Now
Fuse.
imagine
Well
this scale
done.
across the continent, and all the countries in Africa position themselves like that. So that's potential revenue that we've lost over the years. And when you work that out, it's about 100 billion per year. You get it? So we've lost in trillions. That's the second example. The example that really just destroys me is my child growing up in this world and not feeling proud of who they are.
Oh well.
Them losing their sense of pride and identity because
That is their
of these
fault,
kind
not
of
no
images.
Will
Band-Aid.
your child be British African or African British?
Ah.
What would he/she identify as first? Do you think?
Rifleman.
Identify as a human being.
Right. But
Oh,
are they
come
African?
on.
Are they, what would you want them to be?
I want my child to be African because
Yeah.
that's who I am. But I want same way if you're from Ireland or if you're Swedish, you just want your child to represent who they are, right? And that's the
Ireland
kind
and
of world.
Sweden.
And I feel like being in England, that's how it's supposed to be. Different cultures, but embracing the different cultures. And I think what Africa has really been suffering over this side of the world is that the lack of representation. Us not showing that. I'll give a perfect example. The Ebola crisis. Band-Aid raised money for the Ebola crisis, but what Band-Aid forgot to mention was that the Ebola crisis was solved by an African from Congo called Dr. Jean-Jacques Moyembe. Right. So there's like an imbalance of how Africa's portrayed, and I feel like it's now time to really we need to counterbalance that. And we've been doing that with an educational app that we've built called School of New Africa, and it's meant to tell the stories of Africa's contribution to the
Where
world.
is the School of New Africa?
It's on the App Store. You can just download it now. It's an app that teaches Black history in a gamified way, and we're really focusing on the next generation and really building them up, because when my child steps out, I know the world would have a certain view of them. Our mission is to counterbalance that. Is to just put out the Africa that we know, the truth that we know, the powerful people that have come before us. Because I feel like there's such an imbalance that my child would feel inferior whenever they step outside the house. So I want to balance that with this app that we've launched.
How significant was Ed Sheeran's intervention in this, Fuse?
It was super significant, and I think it's the perfect example of how we should be as human beings. And I feel like a lot of people have kind of expressed that they kind of feel guilty for giving, because I've given a perspective where I'm saying that we've lost in tourism, we've lost in investment, we've lost in trade opportunities, but we gave money to help. And
you know, people were buying it for all the right reasons, don't you? They weren't buying it because they wanted to keep
But this is why,
Africa
exactly,
repressed.
this is why I'm giving an example of Ed, because Ed was part of the 2014 one, and he did it with the greatest intention, right? When I spoke to him and I gave him the perspective from my side.
Ed Sheeran, Bob Geldof to Ed Sheeran,
and,
what is going on here?
To just change the way
We
that
got
we
Bob
give.
Geldof.
He understood where I was coming from. He understood it straight away, and he was like, we had a
Disrespect
conversation,
Bob
and the
Geldof.
idea was like, if anybody's going through a crisis, just listen to them and ask them how. Don't just say, this is what you need. We speak, we have a conversation, we have a dialogue. It shouldn't be just a monologue, just you just saying, this is what you need. It's about us having a dialogue and actually finding a way forward and it becoming a partnership. And I always say it needs to be solidarity over charity.
Okay, coming to the last minute or so together. So when next week Band-Aid 40 is released, should people not download it and buy it? What should people do?
Not this version. Because
even though it would raise money for charities in Africa.
Wow.
And also,
I hear you right.
I've also reiterated the long-term effect of what it's gonna have on us if anything, stream the song that I'm putting out. We know is Christmas because it talks about the progress, and it celebrates a culture. And the proceeds of that will go to initiatives that are developing projects, innovative projects that are helping with the development of the continent.
How disappointed are you that Bob Geldof and others haven't listened to your message, Fuse?
It's frustrating. It's frustrating more than anything else because I get it. The intentions were there in the beginning, but 40 years later, we are the grown children of the people that you were helping, and we're telling you that it did not help us in the way that you thought it was going to help us. We lost in the end. So let's find a way to move forward.
I'm going to play a little bit of your We Know It's Christmas in just a second. Before I play that, well, first I want to thank you. Secondly, if ever I take holiday, I mean, you've got to come in. You can just... Man, can he talk. I'm looking at his manager over there, isn't it? Holy...
I don't think I could talk more than you, don't you?
I think you can. So when I said to the producer, he said, oh no, she said, yeah, I think, well, I could have just gone down the pub. I mean, just left it to Fuse. Okay, introducing.
I'm on Nick Ferrari's show, man. Come on, man. It's a pleasure to be here today.
No, the pleasure is all mine.
Now, football. English Premier League. Everton 1, Manchester United 3. Crystal Palace 4, Leeds United 1. Chelsea 4, Sheffield United 1. West Ham 1, Fulham 0. Sunday, West Bromwich 0. Tottenham Hotspur 1. Leicester City 1. Manchester City 1. Liverpool 1. Arsenal 0. Aston Village 3. Syria A.
Oh no.
2. Sampdoria 0. Benevento 0. Spezia 3. Bama 0. Fiorentina 0. Liazzi 1. Juventus 1. Atlanta 1. International 1. Guinea 1. Roma 3. Borussia 3. Borussia Dortmund 2. Bayern Munich 3. Wolfsburg 2. Hoffenheim 1. Bayer Leverkusen 4. Bristol Mahagans 3. Viewers, here is the end of the Rare News. Indeed, it's a Rare News. Read by Akwasi Vodi Akrobato, aka Who Knows Tomorrow. We'll be back at the same time Friday, 7:30, and repeat for you Sunday, 7 o'clock. Viewers, until then, I can see you. Bye-bye.
Rifleman!
Bye! Oh, sorry. Bye!
Rifleman!